Hello all, this is Piyush. You remember that video where I had been discussing about the relevance of Upinder Singh for ancient person. Normally what happens while writing UPSC with history optional, you are completely relying on Upinder Singh's book for the ancient part. But practically speaking, this book is not very relevant, at least in all the areas. The way I had been showing you a couple of questions and I told you that in fact you had either no material or very less material to write the answer of those questions, and for those segments you actually need to consult some other materials from where other materials, or let's say other books or articles from where you could have written the better answer. In this particular session, we are going to discuss the answer of those questions that you can understand ki how come the information of Upinder Singh was quite less and how come we can compensate this information with the other sources. And that's why while preparing for history optional, you have to keep in mind that how to collect the information from various sources rather than relying on just one particular source for any specific area. Let's see with some examples. Okay, let's say this is the question. The Indus Saraswati cultural zone exhibited both homogeneity and diversity. This is the question. So there are three things that you have to keep in mind while attempting this question. So the question is saying that the Indus Saraswati cultural zone. So it means that it is asking you about the cultural zone which was there in Indus and the Saraswati river valleys. And then it is saying that these cultural zones basically exhibited both homogeneity and diversity. So you have to have substantial number of points through which you can literally prove कि okay, these are the elements of homogeneity and these are the elements of diversity. So when it comes to finding information of this question from Upinder Singh, so I have just noted down all those points which can be taken from Upinder Singh. Let's say if it comes to similarities or let's say homogeneity, in that case there are just 2 points, that the layout of the settlements that is like quite equal. So it is again incorrect, not completely correct. The second information, the crops that people grew and consumed, there is also some sort of homogeneity here. But then when it comes to differences, it is basically talking about the types, ranges and frequency of artifacts, right? Specifically like examples that we get from Alladino, the typical black on red Harappan pottery formed only just 1% like of the total pottery finds, like that is also one difference, right? Apart from that, there are differences in the funerary practices across the sites and there are differences in the practices and social customs. So these are just 2 points that could be written in similarities or homogeneity, and there were just 4 points that could be written in differences, right? This is the information that we do get from Upinder Singh. But then if you go for the alternative sources, in that case, how many points you can actually write. So when it comes to homogeneity, from the source what I have been using, we can talk about the unified material culture. So it is about the homogeneity, keep in mind. So it is talking about the widespread distribution of Harappan material culture, throughout the regions, indicating a significant degree of cultural unification. So it's material culture, right? The second is the common ornamentation. So we do find some sort of similarities over there. Then architectural similarities. Then we can talk about technological parallels. Then inter-regional traits. And then social network, right? So these are couple of points that we can write actually in homogeneity with respect to certain examples. When it comes to diversity, in that case we can talk about again multiple points. In diversity we can talk about the local variations, specifically when it comes to the the Harappans. Undoubtedly they have been showing a common Harappan identity, but yet considerable variation in the domestic practices and everyday life could be noticed. In every Harappan site, certain differences, specifically their material culture, that could be noticed, right? Apart from that, we can talk about the distinctive practices. These practices could be understood with respect to their economy, with respect to their religious belief or the religious practices. So that's how we can talk about the distinctive practices with respect to their manufacturing, economy and other thing. Apart from that, the material production, specifically when it comes to their craftsmanship, right? So you can find the notable diversity over there, and some other skill also you can find that since they had been manufacturing the things in a very different way, and that's how these differences are lying. Okay, in the same way, the ceramics, what they had been using, there again, we can find the differences. Then the site specific wealth, Now, there are certain sites which seems to be quite wealthy. On the other hand, there are certain sites which do not seem to be quite wealthy. So that's how we can talk about all these points when we need to show the diversity basically in the Harappan cultural zone. So get my point. Once we have been writing the answers, ultimately what is the most important thing? That as many as valid points we have been writing, that's how we are fetching more marks. And when we need to fetch more marks, in that case, like as I told you, that we have to get the proper amount of content, like, or let's say points through which we can fetch better marks. And for that, you have to understand the requirement of the other materials, and that's how you are going to write a better answer. So if you really want to download the answer of this particular question, so the link you can find in the description. You can download the complete answer in PDF format from there. Thank you.